Hey, everybody. Welcome to Rich in Wellness. Thank you for coming. This is your first time here. And thank you for joining us again if you've been a part of the wellness family. My name is Roddia Paul.
And I am Shola Cargill. Welcome back, everyone, and welcome newcomers.
So, go ahead, Shella.
It
We're both eager because this is an important topic, y'all.
is, and the topic today is drumroll, please. Self love. Self love. So, we're just gonna, do a recap of our self connectors, right? Self connectors, and we'll explain a little bit more about what we mean by self connectors as we go forward. Um, so last week, we spoke about different things. In the beginning, we talked about reflection and the importance of self reflecting, going in deeper, looking at the parts of us that are clear, looking at the parts of us that are not as clear to us or maybe clear to other people, and really getting to a point of saying, okay, well, now that I'm aware of these characteristics, now that I'm aware of myself, what do I want to do with that? Do I want to do anything with that? Do I want to accept it or do I just want to leave it? And, Rodia, I believe you went very deep into those pieces. So, what else?
Yeah, I mean, you hit it right on the head, show. Like, I definitely think that it really begins with having the ability to reflect and be aware because they're very different, right? Reflect is something that happens after the fact. Aware is something that you try to hone in on in the midst of whatever is going on, right? And those two things are really important to one, accepting yourself where you are because you're being aware and you're accepting what you're aware of. And then two, reflecting on things you may or may not um, be proud of, want to accept about yourself, or that others may have said about you or felt towards you. All of those go together to create two things, right? Our self esteem, which we get from the world around us, and the way in which we view our self acceptance. And so that is regardless of what the world around us is doing, how do we feel about ourselves, right? And when we unpack those two things by engaging in self awareness and self reflection, we're then able to one, be more self compassionate, and two, we can regulate the way in which we interact with others and with ourselves, right? Our emotional regulation, our boundary setting is interconnected with all of these things, right? So, Shola, can you tell us how is everything we just talked about self reflection, self acceptance, self esteem, self compassion, self regulation how is all of that connected to our purpose?
I love it. And I'm guessing now, are you guys with us on why we call it self connector? All of those layers of self, all those concepts of self and how they connect and how they connect really into the roadmap that leads us to our purpose. What is the point in us doing all of this exploration work? What is the point of us doing all this care and bringing things into the awareness and looking at our self esteem and increasing our self esteem? All of that is because it's important to do the work that we're called to do the work that we're here for, to do the work that is going to give us that fulfillment inside, right? And so that roadmap can be very simple, but it can also be cyclical, and at the same time, when thinking about the different roadmaps, starting with reflection and then going from reflection to then acceptance and then getting into now, okay, I'm accepting these things. They're here. I'm here. That's not too bad. You know what? It's not bad at all. It's nothing. It's me, Then I begin to love myself. I begin to look at myself in a way that I'm just taking everything in and I'm choosing to love myself. Even when there are parts that I may not be so proud of, maybe those parts that somebody said I'm not supposed to be proud of, I'm still honing that and I'm still loving that unconditionally. And I'm showing up for myself every day in every way, right? And so then the next step is, okay, well, what am I showing up to do? What am I showing up for? Who am I showing up for? What is my purpose? And so going from reflection to acceptance to love to then now purpose or purposes, because we can play multiple roles and we have multiple functions because we're layered, right? All of those pieces really define or help us define where we want to go next. It helps guide our path in where we want to go next. But ultimately, Rodia, can you say a little bit more about that self-love piece though?
Yeah, I think you said two really important things that stood out to me. One was the conversation that you just had around exploration, and then two, the statement you made regarding love being a choice, right? We choose to love, right? And you hear people say, "Oh, I fell in love," right? You can fall in love, but you have to choose to stay in love, right? Once you learn about that person, are still love them or not? Do you still like them or not, right? So we do that all the time with other people, right? We choose to explore and learn about other people. We choose to continue to love people, despite all the things we learn about them. But I think we don't do that enough with ourselves. I think when it comes to us, we don't choose to explore who we are. We are beings that are changing every day. Who
Mm,
I am right now may not be who I am tomorrow. And who I am this year is definitely not going to be who I was last year or the year that's coming. And so, because we're constantly changing, growing, and understanding ourselves, we have to take the time to explore who we are in this moment and what that means for us. And then we have to choose to love who we are in this moment, even if we feel like this is not who we want to be. It's who we are right now,
mm,
and we're going to love ourselves through this until we get to where we want to be, right? And
mm,
that in itself is what Shola and I have been saying is called radical love, right? You are doing the most radical form of love, which is the love of yourself, right? Because the love you have for yourself is reflective of the love you have to give to others, right?
mm,
You have to radically choose to make that your statement, and explore yourself and choose yourself time and time again. I think that is so important, and we definitely don't do that enough. And as we're
mm.
talking about this, like I'm thinking about the fact that self love is different for everybody, right? So, Shola, how would you define that? Like, if you had to.
Yeah. Ooh, if I had to, maybe for me, it would be not maybe, it is for me, this one unconditional love of self. No matter what happens, no matter how many mistakes I make in a day, no matter how many times I offend somebody or offend myself, even, and do things against myself, still having that unconditional compassion and forgiveness. That's another one that goes into that self love for me. And then another thing is on the other side of that, it's when I know better, I do better. And so again, going back to that choice, right? If I know that certain things serve me, I'm going to choose to do those things. And if I know that certain things don't serve me, I'm not going to do those things because I love myself enough to not go down that road. Yeah. So what about you?
Girl, that's so powerful what you just said, because I instantly started to think about just the whole concept of unconditional love. Man, I feel
Mm,
like unconditional love is something that it is, of course, we want to be able to express unconditional love to our family, to our partners, to our friends, to our children. But I think the unconditional love we show ourselves is the most important because we're always with self, right? We can have time away from our partner. We can have
mm,
time away from our children, time away from our friends, time away from our family, from our parents. We can step away when it's just a bit too much. We can't step away from ourselves. We are always with ourselves. And so I definitely would agree with you. Like, self love is literally practicing unconditional acceptance of self, right?
mm.
Because you're always with yourself. We can't get out of here. We can't change bodies. We have, for this lifetime, and that's a
Mm,
different conversation, y'all. But for
mm,
this lifetime, I have this body that I'm in, and I have to unconditionally accept, unconditionally show and express love. And I feel like for me, that means that despite whatever I may feel, despite whatever I'm experiencing, that I always put my well being,
mm.
my purpose, and choosing happiness first. I feel like for me, that is the most radical form of like unconditional love for myself. Like, I'm choosing to be happy because it's a choice, y'all.
Yeah,
That's a different conversation as well. Um, but I think like that's how I would define it. And I think like it's important to make that definition because one thing we're always saying, right, is that everything's individual. We
Mm.
all make meaning of the world in our own way. So it's
Mhm.
important. We challenge you to find self love for yourself, right? And one important part of that is thinking about what self love is and what it isn't, right? So I think a lot of times when it comes to doing wellness work, we have an idea that we're going to get to a point and just be healed.
Mm.
We're going to get to a point and just have self acceptance. We're going to get to a point and just have self love. And y'all, I don't want to
Mm.
burst y'all bubble, but nothing works that way, right?
Mm.
The truth about self love is it's continuous and it's complex. You know, we are always going to be in a state of working to maintain our self love, and we're always going to be in a state of finding new ways to express self love, because the more we understand ourselves, we may realize, oh, like that's something else I need to work on too, right? Shola, can you talk more about like the differences? Of course, we know like self love is continuous and it's complex, but it can be external, internal, it can be linear, it can be circular. Like, can you talk about that?
For sure. And I love that imagery that I got, I'm working on myself, I'm doing it, and it's like, yeah, I got it. And then now that I'm here, I see, oh, wait a minute, there's something else that I can work on. And it becomes cyclical in that sense. It is a linear roadmap, right? It can be a linear roadmap, but it can also be cyclical. And so thinking about this linear roadmap, right? We talked about reflection, acceptance, love, and purpose, right? That's linear, very straightforward, right? But what happens if you get to the end of that purpose and you're like, okay, I fulfilled my role here, right? What's next? You got to go back around in that cycle. You got to go back around and do that reflection work. You got to go back around and say, okay, I accept it. I'm here now. This is a different point. I got to do things differently. And then you get into loving yourself again. You get into loving whatever you're called to do, whatever parts of you have to show up to be that person, to fulfill that role. And then it just becomes even more clear once you walk into that purpose. And so, yeah, it can be linear and it can be cyclical. It can be external in the sense that you're doing things, you're outward doing things, but then the true work, that true change is also internal as well, right? So, just even thinking about why we're even doing this, like what is the purpose of us even talking about this topic and how it even ties into the purpose segment that we're on, right? There's so many different layers of who we are. We mentioned all those self connectors. I'm sure you all can think about other things that go with self worth, right? Self understanding, So there's so many other things. And that just goes to show how important self is, how important you are, right? And so we want to be unconditional with that love because there are so many layers of us. There are so many layers. And it's impossible for us to be like, I'm like all the layers of myself. I mean, maybe you do, kudos to you. I love that you love that. I love that you like that, you know. At the same time, maybe everybody is not at that level, and that's okay because as long as you understand that that's your thing that you don't like and nobody else's, then that's all there is. You can accept that, right? And so by having the power to choose loving yourself and loving those different layers of yourself, whether they're good, bad, ugly, indifferent, whatever, beautiful, it's you can then say, all right, well, you know what? Maybe I want to change this. And maybe I can't change that, but I can change that to improve this. And so then again, that choice, right? You go back into loving on yourself, going into that cyclical and linear process, and you come out with a newfound ability to love yourself more. You've learned now how to love yourself more. And that, of course, helps with loving other people. That goes into improving your relationships, improving your own quality of life because you're standing and you're confident in any and everything that you're standing in. Okay. So, Rodia, let's help the people out. How are we going to keep this going when they leave us today?
Man, listen, what you said so powerful. Like, I think it's important to understand two things, right? We can't figure out our purpose if we have no idea what we like or love or need.
Mm,
We will not understand what our purpose is until we unpack those things, because our purpose is connected to who we are, right? So we have
mm,
to take time to learn who we are. We also have to understand what we have to give others is an extension of what we give ourselves.
mm,
So because those two things are very important, we want to give y'all a task. And of course, the task you do for yourself is the most important work. We know y'all already have a lot of work. We have a lot of work. But the work we do for ourselves is really important. So we definitely want to challenge you. Of course, not all at once. It may be take a while for you to do this task, but attempt to start a list,
mm,
right? And this list will consist of things that you like, things that you love. And then the second part of the list is once you figure out what you like and love, what are ways that you can show yourself love, right? Because what you like and love, those are nouns. There needs to be action, right? So
mm,
put that into a verb by putting it into action, right? We talked about like those self-care based actions like segments ago. It's coming back around because everything is interconnected, right? So turn the things that you like and love into actual actions of love for yourself, right? And this is a list that can keep being made, keep being tweaked, changed. Because of course, as you learn more about yourself, you may realize I actually don't really like that, or I may like this now, so give yourself the space to not have to commit to, oh, once I make this list I can only do these things, right? So we definitely want to challenge you all to do that. It's definitely going to help you create the first step in that roadmap, which is reflection. Reflecting on what you like and love, accepting yourself where you are, and then expressing that love to yourself. And before you know it, you'll be on your way to purpose, right? So you see how it clicked there, Shola? You see? That's crazy, right? I love
speechless.
it. So that's literally us wrapping up our segment on purpose for this month. We're, of course, going to get started with a whole new segment for the month of March that is going to be about physical wellness. And I'm really glad that we saved this as its own segment and we didn't do it as a part of the self care segment, because physical wellness is really important to unpack because it's not just about exercise. And I think that's the stigma on it, right? So we're so excited to help break down all the different components of what physical wellness looks like and hopefully break the stigma that some people viewing may have on it. It's not just exercise, right? We can do more than that to be physically well and physically in tune. Shola, do you have any thoughts on that?
I'm just excited to get started because I know for myself there are aspects of my physical wellness that I want to improve on. So I'm really excited to, explore more with you all and be here once again committing to our wellness journey.
Okay. So y'all already know. Same time, same place. Okay. Next Wednesday, we'll be back with a brand new wellness series on physical wellness. And we're so excited to see you all there. So we'll definitely see you all soon. Thank you so much for sharing time and space with us today. And of course, enjoy the rest of your Wellness Wednesday. Duh, like, bye, everybody.